So if your fundraising plan is we'll do something when we need money. Like, is that your plan? Is that how you fundraise as an organization? And you need to be honest with yourself about that. But if you're doing this, you don't have a plan. You have a panic button that you only hit when you need it. And that is called reactive fundraising. Now, this doesn't just feel exhausting, but it can actually cost your organization money and lots of money. You raise money in a rush, but you usually pay for it in discounts, desperation, and more importantly, damaged relationships. Proactive versus reactive fundraising. That is our focus. Let's huddle up. Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fund Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. Great to be with you. And it's good to be back after just a week off because of the Thanksgiving holiday. And of course, here we are in December, approaching the end of the calendar year. And this is probably a good time to be thinking about this because many of you have fiscal years that align with the calendar year. And perhaps you've already put your budget together. But I hope you have a plan to go with that budget, because if you're just plugging in numbers to say that you're going to raise those dollars and you don't have a plan to back it up, you may find yourself engaging in reactive fundraising. You see, when we're engaged in proactive fundraising, we have a plan, we lead, we anticipate needs, we build relationships with individuals before we ask for that gift. We work a plan monthly, weekly, quarterly. There's action steps associated with that plan instead of just hoping that you hit a lucky streak. We're patient, consistent, and when you're like this, you definitely build donor confidence. But when we engage in reactive fundraising, we're in chase mode. We're reacting to a crisis. We're asking for gifts while we're under pressure, which actually reeks of desperation energy. That's what you give off when you are engaged in reactive fundraising. You default to random acts of fundraising. You start doing quick events, your urgent emails, last minute grant sprints, right? And that's when you find out deadlines don't align with what you need, especially when you need it right away. And you tend to settle for smaller gifts, lower expectations, all of those things just to get the dollars in the door, because you're in this mindset that says anything will help, anything will do. And what you're doing is you're training your donors to respond to crises, not vision. It's very, very critical. And I'm focusing on this because when you're in that desperation mode, it changes your tone, it changes your energy, it changes your confidence, it changes how you represent your organization, because you're outward facing, you're connecting with constituents. And if you're out there in desperation, and in some cases, you may only be connecting with donors when it comes to asking for money, that is not a good place to be. And then settling becomes normal, right? You start saying, yeah, they'll never give that much, or you'll take what you can get, or let's just ask for $50. You see what happens here? Because you're so desperate to get cash in the door, you'll rush and lower, or in some cases, you may be bold enough to go for a big ask because you need it now, but the timing to ask for it isn't right for that donor. And you're so focused on getting cash in the door. When you do this, it costs you more, not just in the money, right? You may be getting less money. And if you have an emergency that you're raising money for, let's just say um, a furnace, right? Just about every organization that has facilities has a furnace or two or three. Let's say that furnace is on its last leg, and all of a sudden, here we are, it's December, and it decides to completely break, and you didn't plan for this. You didn't budget for this. So now what? Right? You're stuck. And so you've got to do whatever you can to be able to make that work. I would encourage you not to emergency fundraise if you can avoid it. There are some cases where it can work. And I will tell you that if you do any kind of emergency fundraising, I mean, certainly if a furnace is broken and it's December, you may get some folks who are interested in supporting, right? They may be sympathetic, because everybody knows what it's like to be cold, especially if you have a program and you're serving children or families or whatever the case may be. That'll resonate with people. But let me tell you something. You're only going to get one chance to do that. Because if you come back again and you want to emergency fundraise for something else, donors will sit back and they will look and ask, what's happening? Because these are the kinds of things as a leader you should be planning for. So whether it's facilities, whether it's programs, whether it's equipment, whatever you need, you have to be thinking about how you're going to sustain your mission. And that doesn't mean you just sit with the things that you spend money on one time. That sustainability includes replacing, updating, all the things that you need to do to make sure that you have state of the art equipment, state of the art facilities, or the best possible scenario for the people that you serve. Also, when you're engaged in reactive fundraising, you damage trust without realizing it, again, because you're so mired in trying to get the money in the door. We have tunnel vision and we're not looking and paying attention to the damage that you're doing to the relationships that you have. And the perception is that as an organization and as a leader, there's some weaknesses. Planning is weak. There's always, they always seem to be raising money for something that they need. Now, the benefits of proactive fundraising, and in some ways, this is common sense, and many of you are probably doing this, but maybe not to the degree that you should be. Because if you're planning your operating budget for the next fiscal year and you're not looking at deferred maintenance items, replacing equipment, updating equipment, if you haven't paid attention to that and you're not listening to your staff, because I'm sure your staff is coming to you saying, we need to new this, we need new that, and you may brush it off or you understand that, but you're not planning for it. That's why each year you should be striving to raise more money than you raised the previous year. Do not rest on your laurels. When you engage in proactive fundraising, the perception is that you're calmer, leadership is calmer. You ask at the right time and in the right way, you get bigger gifts, you have stronger donor retention, and momentum is sustainable because you're planning, you're thinking, and you're also sharing, hopefully, with your donors the return on their investment. Hey, this year we plan on doing this. And so in order to do this, we will, our goal is to raise X amount of dollars between now and the end of the fiscal year. This will allow us to boom, 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 replace this equipment, fix the roof, replace the carpet, whatever that may be, so that you maintain a quality facility, a quality program, a quality product in terms of the service that you're providing. That only happens when you are engaging in terms of the resources you need for that in proactive fundraising. There are 3 P's I want you to think about: plan, pipeline, and practice. Plan, got to have a plan, put a plan in place over that 12-month period. Pipeline, you got to work your pipeline. And I'm talking about your major gifts pipeline. You should be looking at individuals who are your constituents, wealth screening them, and identifying amounts that they have the capacity to give. If they gave 10,000 last year, perhaps they'll give 12.5 next year, or 15. If they gave 10,000 last year, maybe they'll give 15,000 next year. That's how you need to be thinking. Even recurring gifts, you can ask people to increase the recurring gift by $5 a month more. So if they're giving you $50 a month, increase it to 55, or maybe $10 a month more. There has to be, because everything is going to need, you're going to need resources. We all know how the economy works. Nothing stays stagnant, and your fundraising shouldn't stay stagnant either. It is going to be very important for you to be proactive and not just react to what's happening in the moment. So make sure you have a plan for the whole fiscal year, maybe 2 fiscal years or 3 fiscal years, to ideally. But the 12 months that are in front of you, that plan needs to be fairly detailed. Having monthly targets, um, making sure that you are getting out there and visiting with individuals. Pipeline, make sure you're always looking at your top 10, 15, 20 prospects at all times. And if you're really doing the work well, then your donors are going to be giving on an annual cycle that doesn't necessarily align with December, but you may have donors who give in April and May and June, and donors who give in September and October and December, right? By the way, those 6 months I just identified are probably the busiest months for a nonprofit. January, February are tough. July or August are always tough because of vacation. January and February because it's the beginning of the year and everybody is a little fatigued from holiday spending. And then finally, practice, right? You have to practice talking about your mission, practice getting in the habit of picking up the phone, calling your prospects, getting out to visit with them. Practice telling stories about your organization. Practice making sure that you know what language your donor speaks so that you have a story to tell that speaks head or heart. You need to be practicing talking about your mission from a position of strength, not a position of desperation. And make sure you're consistent with your follow-ups. It's one thing to visit. It's one thing to ultimately solicit. It's another thing to make sure that you're maintaining that relationship throughout the year so that it is indeed a relationship that is based on trust and leadership and not based on a transaction. because that can happen. You can easily have a major gift prospect who you have transitioned from being a transactional donor into a relational donor, and then all of a sudden you're getting back into a transaction mode. You're meeting with them, you get a check, you say hello, and then you don't see them again for another year. And you're not going to get more from that person. You'll likely get the same, or in some cases the donor will decline because they will only associate you with asking for money as opposed to working your plan, being proactive, and then ultimately soliciting them when that time is right. So, if you want to know how to switch from reactive to proactive, sit down and figure out what your panic patterns are. What are the things that are triggering that scramble mode that you get into? Is it a cash flow dip? Is it a board meeting when you're getting challenged by board members? Is it a grant deadline or unexpected expenses? What are those patterns? Be honest with yourself and sit down and figure those out. You have to identify what those triggers are before you can address them. And then create a minimum plan that is viable. How many donor meetings are you going to have a week? How many thank you calls? How many connections are you going to make a week or a month? How many asks are you going to have in a month? What are you doing to update your donors in mass as well um, as part of the relationship? Have that plan in place. Start small, start reasonable. And then put proactive timelines on everything. Put it on your calendar. I can't stress this enough. Your calendar, I mean, time happens and when you're proactive in terms of how you plan, how you use your time, your calendar is the best tool for that. Not a to-do list, because a to-do list is over here. But if you take things from a to-do list and put them on your calendar at the time that you plan on doing it, then you will find that life will be much easier. Your calendar is the best way to go, not just working from a to-do list. And I know I could go on and on about this. And I could do a whole nother um, episode just on time management. But the calendar is your best friend. It's there, it's consistent, every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every year, every month, right? We just have this consistent clock is ticking, doesn't stop. So use it wisely. If you can find 20% of your time, 8 hours a week, or the equivalent of 1 day a week to spend on fundraising, put that plan together and work that plan. And that's all you need, I believe, to be successful, especially if you're an executive director with no in house fundraising support at all. So make sure you plan, make sure that you work your pipeline, and make sure that you practice. And if you aren't being proactive about fundraising, I hope this episode has helped you to understand the importance of planning. It doesn't matter how small your organization is, it doesn't matter how young your organization is. You have to have a plan, you have to have a budget, you have to be able to put a plan together so that you can see the long-term sustainability of your mission. And if you're a founder, this should be critically important to you. Otherwise, you wind up engaged in reactive fundraising that could be what helps you meet your organization's demise. You could be one furnace away, one roof away, whatever that may be, from critically impacting your organization's ability to do its work. So let's get proactive. Let's make this your New Year's resolution as we roll into 2026. I hope this has been helpful to you. And I say all this to say that when it comes to fundraising, and that's why a plan is so important, it's not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thanks. And we'll see you next time.